Hey, Lerner, great to have you with us again. I really admire how you're always trying to grasp these complex topics without getting bogged down in the weeds. So today we're going on this, deep dive into marketing information and those customer insights everyone keeps talking about. All that stuff companies use to figure out, well, what's actually happening in the market and what makes their customers tick.
It's really fascinating stuff.
It really is. We've got a bunch of material here that looks at just how companies do it. And our mission, you could say, is to really pull out those nuggets of gold, those key aha moments from all this material so you can walk away really understanding how businesses get all this information, how they analyze it, and how they actually use it. It's like your shortcut to becoming an expert in this really important part of business.
You got it. And in today's market, knowing this stuff is more important than ever. I mean, you can't just guess anymore, right? You need to really know your market inside and out, and you absolutely need to understand your customers, what they want, what they need, what they're thinking, and that's the foundation of any successful business. I don't care what anyone says.
Couldn't agree more. So let's jump right in. One of the first things that our material talks about is this idea of a marketing information system. It's also called an MIS, by the way. So what exactly is that?
Yeah. In MIS, think of it as the intelligence center, like the brain of a company's marketing operation. It's a framework, it's a structure that they set up to gather, sort through, and analyze all that information. Then they got to evaluate it, and then finally distribute it to the people who need it to make the big marketing decisions.
Yeah.
And it's not just about getting any old information, it's about having the right information, getting it to the right people at the right time, making sure it's accurate, up to date, all that good stuff.
Oh, I see. So it's kind of like having a really well-organized library or database specifically for marketing information.
You got it. That's a really good way to think about it. But, one of the interesting things that pops up is the struggle many companies have. And it's not actually with the lack of data. Data is everywhere these days. It's more about how they pull it all together.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
what's the secret sauce then?
Well, a really effective MIS, it prioritizes something called data integration. That means they're not working with like 10 different systems that don't talk to each other. They pull it all together into, one source of truth, which makes decision-making way more accurate and streamlined.
Makes total sense. So we've got this idea of an MIS, and then there's this other term that gets thrown around a lot, big data. How does that fit into this whole picture?
Big data, right? It's basically the huge amount of information that's out there generated by, all the amazing technology we have these days. It's like mind-blowing how much data there is. And for businesses, it's both a gold mine and a potential headache all at the same time.
How so? I mean, wouldn't more data always be a good thing?
You'd think so. But imagine trying to find a needle in a haystack the size of like a mountain.
Mm.
That's kind of what it's like sometimes. So the trick is you need the right systems, the right tools, the right kind of people to actually sift through all that big data and find those golden nuggets, those actual insights that can make a difference.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about having the data, it's about what you do with it.
Exactly. And a key insight here, it's not just about the volume of data you have, but the ability to know what questions to ask and how to use the right tools to analyze it. Companies that just kind of gather data without a clear strategy, they end up drowning in it without really getting anything useful out of it.
Right, that makes sense. So let's step back for a second. Why is all this information and those customer insights so crucial in the first place? It sounds like a pretty big investment for companies to set all this up.
Yeah, it can be, but it's really all about creating value for your customers. That's the core of it all. In today's market, it's not enough to just have a good product or a good price. You've got to stand out from the crowd.
Yeah.
You've got to really connect with your customers on a deeper level. And that's where having good marketing information and those insights, well, that's what makes all the difference.
I like that. It's like if you don't really know your audience, your message is just going to fall flat. It's like trying to talk to someone in a language they don't understand.
Exactly. Good information helps you tailor your message so it actually resonates with the people you're trying to reach. And it helps you build those long-lasting relationships, the kind that turns customers into raving fans.
That's the dream, right?
It is. And that's why smart companies, they're starting to see information as a strategic asset. Yeah. It's like it's as important as their product or their brand. It's what helps them stay ahead of the game.
Right, because the market's always changing, and you've got to be able to adapt. So let's talk about where companies actually get all this marketing information. Our sources talk about a few different places.
Yeah, there are basically three main sources. There are internal databases, which are basically like the information that companies already have within their own systems. Then there's marketing intelligence, which is about gathering information that's publicly available. And finally, there's marketing research, which is a more formal, structured approach to gathering information for specific purposes.
Okay, let's break those down a bit. So internal databases, what kind of information are we talking about here?
Think about all the data that a company generates just through its normal day-to-day operations. So, sales transactions, when someone buys something, when they return something, all those details. You've got customer service interactions, website activity, what pages people are looking at, how long they're staying on a page. All those things get tracked. And then there's stuff like email marketing campaigns.
Yeah.
Who opened the email, who clicked on a link. All that gets stored in their internal databases.
Oh, okay. So like when I buy something online from a company, all those details, what I bought, how much it cost, my shipping address, that all gets stored in their internal database.
You got it. And the great thing about internal data is, well, it's usually pretty easy and inexpensive to access. It's right there, in their systems already.
Sounds pretty convenient. But are
Mhm.
there downsides to relying too much on internal data?
Ah, great question. Absolutely. See, internal data, it's all about the past. It tells you what's already happened, right? But doesn't necessarily tell you what's going to happen in the future. So a company that only looks at its own internal data, they might miss out on emerging trends or what their competitors are up to, or even what new customers might be looking for. It's like you're driving a car, but you're only looking in the rearview mirror. You can see where you've been, but you can't see where you're going.
That's a great way to put it. So what about the second source you mentioned, marketing intelligence? What's that all about?
Marketing intelligence, this is all about gathering information that's publicly available. We're not talking about corporate espionage or anything like that, but it's about, systematically collecting and analyzing information about your customers, your competitors, and just general trends in the market. And these days, a lot of that happens online, of course.
So if I see a bunch of people on social media talking about a new product from one of my competitors, that would be considered marketing intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect example. Companies are always monitoring these online conversations, and they're looking at things like customer reviews, news articles, industry reports, anything that can give them a better understanding of what's happening out there in the world.
Wow. So it's really about having your finger on the pulse of the market. But strategically speaking, what does a company actually gain from this kind of competitive intelligence?
Oh, it's incredibly valuable strategically. First off, it helps them spot those potential threats and be ready to, adapt and react quickly. Imagine if a competitor suddenly launches a killer new product. Well, if you're on top of your marketing intelligence, you'll know about it right away and can figure out how to respond. Plus, it helps you find those hidden opportunities. Maybe you spot a weakness in your competitor's strategy, or you see that they're not meeting a particular customer need that could be your chance to swoop in and, gain some market share. It's like a chess game. You're always trying to think a few moves ahead.
Fascinating. And the third source we mentioned, marketing research, how's that different from marketing intelligence?
So marketing research is a more formal and structured process. Companies will actually design specific research projects to answer very specific questions about their market or their customers. And sometimes they'll do this research themselves, but often they'll hire, specialized research firms to do it for them.
Mm.
There are different kinds of marketing research, like exploratory research, which is when you're trying to get a better understanding of a problem or an opportunity. And then there's descriptive research, which is about, describing things like what are the characteristics of a particular customer segment. And then there's causal research, which is when you're trying to figure out if one thing causes another, like does a particular advertising campaign actually lead to an increase in sales?
Okay, so if I'm getting this right, internal data is what we already have. Marketing intelligence is what we can gather from public sources, and marketing research is what we actively go out and find ourselves.
Nailed it. Now, our sources spend a lot of time talking about competitive marketing intelligence. I mean, it seems kind of obvious that you'd want to know what your competition is doing, right? But why is it so important to really focus on this?
Well, I'd imagine it's all about having a competitive edge, right? You've got to know what your rivals are up to if you want to stay ahead of them.
Absolutely. It's all about strategy. If you can really understand your competitors, their strengths, their weaknesses, what they're planning, what they're good at, what they're not so good at, then you can position your own company in a way that gives you a real advantage. It's like, in sports, right? Got to scout the other team, figure out their plays, their strengths, their weaknesses. It's the same idea in business.
So how do companies actually go about gathering this competitive intelligence? It's not like their competitors are just going to hand over their secret plans.
That's true. But there's actually a surprising amount of information that's available publicly if you know where to look. Think about things like annual reports that companies have to publish, their websites, their marketing materials, presentations they give at conferences, even what their employees are saying online. All that stuff can offer clues about their strategy. And of course, there's all the online stuff, social media, blogs, forums. Those can be gold mines for insights into what your competitors are doing and how customers are reacting to them.
So it sounds like a mix of good old-fashioned detective work and some serious online sleuthing.
Yeah, you could see that.
Okay, let's dive a little deeper into marketing research, since that seems like a really proactive way for companies to get the information they need. Now, our sources break down the whole research process into 4 main steps. Can you walk us through those?
Sure. The first step is to define the problem, which is actually trickier than it sounds. Well, you got to figure out what you're really trying to solve. We want to sell more products. Well, that's a given. But what's the specific problem that's preventing you from doing that? Once you nail that down, then you can set your research objectives, which are like the specific things you want to find out through your research. And there are a few types of research that are helpful here: exploratory research, descriptive research, and causal research. Exploratory helps you define the problem better, descriptive paints a picture of what's going on, and causal tries to figure out what causes what.
Okay, so once you know what you're trying to figure out, what's next?
Step 2 is to develop a research plan, which is like your roadmap for the whole project. It lays out exactly how you're going to do the research. What kind of data will you use? What methods will you use to collect that data? Who are you going to talk to? And how will you pick those people? And finally, what tools will you use to actually gather the information?
That's a lot of decisions. Let's start with the data. I know our sources talk about secondary data and primary data. What's the difference between those?
Secondary data, that's information that already exists somewhere, collected for some other purpose. It could be industry reports, government stats, data from trade associations, stuff like that. It's usually cheaper and faster to get than primary data. But you got to be careful because it might not be exactly what you're looking for, or it might be outdated, or maybe even biased.
So it's like using a pre-written recipe. It might work, but it might not be exactly what you need.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Now, primary data, that's the information you collect yourself specifically for your research project. And there are a few different ways to do that. You've got observational research, where you literally just watch people and how they behave. Then there's survey research, where you ask people questions directly. And finally, there's experimental research, where you try to control certain variables and see how they affect other things.
So each of these approaches gives you a different angle on the problem you're studying. And you mentioned contact methods earlier. How do researchers actually reach out to people to get this primary data?
Well, there are the old standbys, like mail questionnaires, sending surveys in the mail. Those can reach a lot of people, but not everyone bothers to send them back, so the response rates can be kind of low. Telephone interviewing is another one. It's quicker, but some people find it intrusive. Then there's personal interviewing, which can be one-on-one or in groups, like focus groups. That lets you get more in-depth information, but it's also more time-consuming and expensive. And of course, these days, there's a ton of online marketing research happening, online surveys, online focus groups, even just tracking what people do online. Those methods are usually cheaper and easier to do, plus you can reach people all over the world.
And then there's the sampling plan. That's about deciding who you're going to include in your research, right?
You got it. It's about choosing the right group of people to represent the larger population you're interested in. You got to figure out 3 things: who will be surveyed, how many people you need to survey, and how you'll choose those people. There are 2 main types of sampling: probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Probability sampling, it's all about making sure everyone has an equal chance of being selected, which is important for statistical analysis. Non-probability sampling, it's more about convenience or the researcher's judgment. It really depends on the research goals.
And the final piece of the research plan is the research instruments. What are those exactly?
Basically, it's the tools you use to actually collect the data. The most common ones are questionnaires, which can have open-ended questions where people can write in their own answers, or closed-ended questions where they choose from a set of options. And then there are mechanical instruments like those brain scanning things they use in neuromarketing research to see how people react to different stimuli, or those checkout scanners that track what people buy at the grocery store.
So we've got a solid research plan in place. Now, what happens in step 3, implementing the research plan?
This is where the rubber meets the road. It's time to actually collect the data from all those people we carefully selected using the methods and tools we decided on in the research plan. Once you've got all that data, you got to process it, clean it up, make sure there aren't any errors, and then analyze it to find those hidden patterns and insights. Accuracy is key here, because if the data is not reliable, then the whole research project is basically pointless.
Right, you're building a house on a foundation of beta, so that foundation better be strong. And finally, we've got step 4, interpreting and reporting the findings. What happens in this stage?
This is where we take all that data and turn it into something meaningful. It's not just about summarizing the numbers, but about figuring out what those numbers actually mean, in the context of the research problem we started with. What story is the data telling us? And what does that mean for the business? And then we need to communicate those findings clearly to the people who need to know, the marketing managers, the executives, whoever's making the decisions. And it's important that researchers and managers work closely together here so everyone's on the same page about what the data means and what actions need to be taken.
That makes sense. It's not just about the numbers, it's about the story they tell. So let's say a company has gone through all this, they've gathered all this marketing information from different sources, maybe done some in-depth research. What do they actually do with it? Our sources talk about something called analyzing and using marketing information. What does that involve?
It's all about turning raw data into actionable insights. This involves a lot more than just basic number crunching. It's about finding those meaningful patterns, connections, relationships in the data. And that's where something called customer relationship management, or CRM, comes in.
Okay, CRM, I've heard that term before, but what is it exactly?
CRM, it's basically a way to manage a company's relationships with its customers. It's about using data to understand each customer as an individual, their needs, their preferences, their past interactions with the company. And then you can use that information to build stronger relationships, personalize your marketing messages, improve your customer service, and ultimately keep those customers coming back for more.
So CRM is like a giant Rolodex, but instead of just names and phone numbers, it's got all kinds of detailed information about each customer.
Exactly. And there's special software that helps companies manage all that information and use it effectively. And then there's marketing analytics, which is like the next level of data analysis.
How so? I mean, how's that different from regular data analysis?
Well, marketing analytics, it's about digging really deep into the data, often really big data sets, to find those subtle patterns and trends that you might not see with just basic analysis. It's about using sophisticated tools and techniques, and increasingly artificial intelligence, or AI, to really understand what's going on and predict what might happen in the future. Things like, will a particular marketing campaign be successful? What kind of products are customers likely to buy next? That kind of stuff.
So CRM is about managing the customer relationships, and marketing analytics is about finding those hidden insights in the data that can help you improve those relationships.
Yeah, you could say that.
Great.
Yeah.
And once you have all those insights, you need to make sure they get to the right people in the company so they can actually use them. That's what distributing and using marketing information is all about, right?
Exactly. It's not enough to just have the information. It's got to get to the people who can actually use it to make decisions. So companies use things like internal websites, intranets, regular reports, dashboards that visually display the key information, anything to make sure that the insights from all this data analysis are actually being used to improve their marketing efforts.
It's like you can have the best map in the world, but if it's just sitting in a drawer somewhere, it's not going to help you get where you need to go.
Right. Now, we've talked a lot about bigger companies here. But what about smaller businesses and nonprofits? Do they need to worry about all this too?
I think so, right? I mean, everyone needs to understand their customers and the market they're operating in.
Yeah, definitely. They might not have the resources for, those huge research projects or fancy CRM systems, but they can still gather a lot of valuable information in other ways, by observing their customers, talking to them, reading online reviews, doing their own small-scale surveys, and looking at publicly available data. The basic principles are still the same. It's just a matter of adapting the methods to fit their budget and their needs.
Right. It's about being resourceful and using the tools that are available to you. Finally, our sources mention public policy and ethics in marketing research. Why is this such an important area?
Well, it's because companies are collecting so much data these days that there are some real concerns about, privacy and how that information is being used. Public policymakers and ethicists are really starting to pay attention to this because it's important to make sure that companies are using this data responsibly, that they're being transparent with customers about what they're collecting and how they're using it. And of course, it's crucial that companies are honest about their research findings. They shouldn't be like cherry picking data to tell the story they want to tell or misleading the public in any way. It's all about maintaining trust.
Right. Trust is essential in any relationship, and that includes the relationship between a company and its customers. Well, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into the world of marketing information and customer insights. We've covered a lot of ground here, from defining key concepts like marketing information systems and big data to exploring all the different sources of marketing information, understanding the steps involved in conducting marketing research, and recognizing the importance of CRM and marketing analytics in turning all that data into actionable strategies.
Hopefully, learner, you're walking away from this with a much clearer understanding of how companies gather, analyze, and use all this information to make better decisions, create better products, and build stronger relationships with their customers.
Absolutely. And understanding these principles can be really valuable for you, whether you're working in a business setting, trying to figure out the market for your own ideas, or just trying to be a more informed consumer yourself. It's all about, seeing behind the curtain and understanding how the marketing world really works.
So here's a final thought to chew on, learner. With all this data flying around, what do you think the future holds for how companies will use it? What new opportunities and challenges do you think we'll see in the years to come? Think about it.